it's crazy to me that there are so many businesses out there that are making millions of dollars that do not have a CFO. They only have an accountant. And so every role is important, and every role has its purpose. And when you think about what the finance function is, it has several facets to it. One of it is every business has a strategy. And one of the questions that every leader should have is how much is it going to cost me to execute the strategy? What resources is it going to require? How long is it going to take? What is the impact on my business across different functions? And this is what strategic financial planning is. And this is the job of a CFO, to take the vision of a CEO and to model it, to lay out a roadmap, to understand what are going to be capital requirements, financial implications on operations, technology, customer service, whatever other assets of the business involved.
Welcome to Biz Help for You, the show that saves you the expensive learning curve by providing advice from industry experts in every facet of the entrepreneurial journey. Too many small businesses collapse. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 20% fail within their first year, and less than 35% make it to their 10th anniversary. The goal of this podcast is to change that statistic. So if you're interested in learning more to be a successful entrepreneur, tune in today.
Let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Victoria Yampolsky is the president and founder of the Startup Station, a CFO advisory and finance education platform that supports startups and small businesses. Her extensive experience as a serial entrepreneur, early stage startup mentor, and strategic CFO with expertise in financial modeling and valuation makes her a valuable resource for entrepreneurs. The Startup Station has aided over 150 founders in raising $50 million in venture capital by translating their visions into actionable financial roadmaps, serving as a crucial communication tool for fundraising and strategic decision-making. Moreover, through Power Up, a nonprofit initiative she co-founded, Victoria addresses the gender funding gap by providing 2-year training in strategic and financial planning, executive coaching, global networking, and rigorous result monitoring to empower female-led ventures. Her advocacy as a member of the Leadership Council of the National Small Business Association further supports fair access to capital for women in the United States. You can benefit from her financial expertise, educational resources, and commitment to gender diversity in entrepreneurship. So, Victoria, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And thank you for creating my bio in such a concise and literary form.
No problem. Well, we did just share a little bit about you, but I always ask to tell me just a little bit more of your story. How did you become an entrepreneur?
Sure. Well, it wasn't a straight line. I didn't know that I'm supposed to be an entrepreneur. When I was studying, and I grew up in St. Petersburg, Russia, and there I was studying at a school that had a focus in math, physics, and computer science. So I thought that I'm going to be a software developer. It seemed like it's a very practical career. And so when I went to Cornell University, I studied computer science. And as a junior, I realized that this wasn't my calling, even though I still love algorithms. And everything that I do, I think of it as an algorithm, whether it's a financial algorithm, whether it's my day, or whether I'm cooking, it doesn't matter. In my mind, everything is an algorithm. And I've definitely learned that from my education. But I wanted to go more in a business route. And so I joined IT consulting in financial services. And again, it wasn't really my passion. The work didn't excite me. I decided I'm going to go to business school and go to Wall Street. So I did that, and I went to Wall Street. And again, the work was very one-sided. What it was missing for me is a creative component. Because what I didn't mention is that I'm also an actress, and I've acted for 8 years. I started acting professionally in Russia. I continued to act in amateurish theater groups in the US. And so there was always this 2 parts of my life that were creative and quantitative. And the jobs, the corporate jobs that I had, of course, at the lower levels, they were very structured and they were one-sided. And so it didn't really allow me to explore all parts of my personality and all parts of what I wanted to do. So after 3 years in Wall Street, I decided that I'm going to quit my job, which, by the way, was very well paying, and start a film company. Because I decided I do not want to wake up when I'm 70 years old and question, what if I did that? what if I did this? I wanted to have all those answers in front of me. I wanted to find out what would happen if I did that. And so I decided to go to film instead of theater because based on my research, it seemed like a more practical career as a producer. Then I didn't want to become an actress. I wanted to use my business skills, then go to theater. And by the way, it's still really difficult. And my first venture failed tremendously. I made all of the mistakes that a first-time entrepreneur can make. I did not really validate the track record of my team members. I tried to raise too much money. I didn't validate the business model. And I also had, at this point in my life, a lot of arrogance, which I wasn't even aware of that I had that. I was just very confident. And I thought I knew better than everybody. And that was because I hadn't really failed up to this point in my life. Everything in my life was kind of going to plan. I kept getting good grades, getting good jobs, going into good schools. And so this was the first time where I didn't get what I wanted. And even though it was a extremely, excruciatingly painful experience, it was absolutely necessary in my growth as a human being and in my becoming an entrepreneur, because it made me realize that I need to be humble. And that I need to work with others, and I need to be open to learning, and I need to be open to change. And so then I founded my company called the Startup Station, and it's celebrating 10 years this year, which is a very big milestone for me. I've done a lot of things over the years, and I kind of transferred what I try to do for producers to entrepreneurs. So producers, they care about their movies as babies, right? They're intellectual babies. And startup founders care about their products or services or whatever they're creating as their babies too. But oftentimes they get too enamored with the idea. And they don't think about the business behind it and how to bring it to market and how to make it sustainable. And that's where my expertise is. And very quickly I understood that I needed to focus on finance, not only because it was my education, but also because either they knew what cash flow was or they didn't. I didn't need to convince them. Either they knew what investors wanted them, what KPIs were or WACC, and I'm going to say some other terms that may not be familiar to your listeners. But the point is either they knew what those things were or they did not. So it made it easier for me to explain that I can help them. And so that's why I decided to focus to finance, and my consulting grew from just providing consulting services to then teaching and developing a whole educational army, now creating a special program targeting female entrepreneurs and addressing the gender funding gap. And I'm so excited to say that we launched part of the program already. It's a coaching component, because what I've discovered as an entrepreneur is that what happens inside our minds is incredibly important. And it's not talked about enough. It's more about, know your why, be resilient, figure out the gap in the market. But how do you do all that, right? How do you know your why? How do you figure out a gap in the market? How do you overcome all the challenges? You deal with uncertainty and failure and rejection and overwhelming number of things that come your way as an entrepreneur if you don't manage your emotions, if you don't manage your internal state, if you don't keep perspective that allows you to find positive even in a negative situation and accept it and move forward, to understand the point of view of whoever you're negotiating with or having a disagreement with, so it's easier to come to a solution that is beneficial to both of you and move forward instead of wasting time and energy on both sides and going over, how this person is terrible and how, they did this and they did that and they don't care, etc. And so our coaching program focuses on those issues. And the great thing is that we have 3 new programs open for enrollment. The first one is running right now. It's a unique approach where we bring together 10 to 15 female entrepreneurs for 3 months, and then they go through training to help them deal with these issues. And so that is one of the things that I wanted to make available to every female entrepreneur, female business owner out there. If you have a business, if you have a startup, you're eligible for that program. And so my journey as an entrepreneur evolved. And finally, I got into advocacy because for me, it completes the picture of solving the gender funding gap, where you don't just support it with programming and technical assistance, but you create a regulatory environment that creates conditions for investors to want to invest more money into underrepresented sectors. And I'm proud to say that the same bill that was already passed in California, SB 54, that requires venture capitalists to disclose how they invest money and the demographics of the founders, the same bill is going to go for voting in New York State because of my efforts. It's being finalized right now, and it's supposed to be introduced in the assembly at the end of the month. That all happened really fast in the past 2.5 months, where, by the way, 3 men understood the value of working together, of making it, sure that everybody has a chance to make their dream come true. And they wanted to participate. And, 3, those lawmakers, my rep, Alex Borst and his team, they wanted to pass that bill. Nice. So this is my journey. It was not a straight line. And eventually I understood that I have to follow my passion.
Perfect. Well, I would love for you to talk about, too, you mentioned in your bio, of course, being a CFO. And I know sometimes people don't understand the difference of a CFO, a controller, like a CPA, a bookkeeper, what are the differences?
Sure. And that's a very important question because it's it's crazy to me that there are so many businesses out there that are making millions of dollars that do not have a CFO. They only have an accountant. And so every role is important, and every role has its purpose. And when you think about what the finance function is, it has several facets to it. One of it is every business has a strategy. And one of the questions that every leader should have is how much is it going to cost me to execute the strategy? What resources is going to require? How long is it going to take? What is the impact on my business across different functions? And this is what strategic financial planning is. And this is the job of a CFO, to take the vision of a CEO and to model it, to lay out a roadmap, to understand what are going to be capital requirements, financial implications on operations, technology, customer service, whatever other assets of the business involved. How many people need to be hired, when this business will begin bringing money, what the pricing structure should be, et cetera, et cetera. It's always a very revolutionary process when you have an idea and then you put it on paper and you see how it's going to be executed. And it's amazing how many things will come up during this process that is impossible to think about when it's all in your mind before you put it down on paper. This is just one facet of the finance function. Then, of course, you need to understand when you begin executing, is your plan correct? Because what we're doing first is we're creating a plan. We have an idea, and now we have a plan to bring it into life. So then we have a question, okay, so which systems do we need to record our results? How are we going to track our results? Which metrics are we going to use to determine success? This is also what the CFO does, right? So it does the big picture stuff. And then an accountant comes and a bookkeeper come to life where they record results, right? So once we have the systems and we integrate them, they help record results and they run the company on an operational level. And the controller could, if the business is big enough, you need a person who will oversee a team of people recording results to make sure that it's done correctly across multiple facets of the business. For example, you may have a person who's just responsible for sending out invoices. You may have another person just responsible for paying your team if you have enough business going into those functions. Sometimes one person is enough if you're just a small business. And that what if you're a small business owner, you may only have an accountant because you have to pay taxes. So you got to record results so that you have something to report to the IRS. But if you're missing the CFO, and it doesn't need to be a full-time person, by the way. It can be somebody who comes in for monthly reviews once they do the initial setup, or quarterly reviews, or whatever is necessary for your business. If you're missing that advice, you lack understanding what's really happening in your business, which parts of the strategy need fine-tuning. You lack understanding what's happening in your cash. And sooner or later, if you don't have that understanding, you're going to run into problems. And in fact, I have several cases with my clients where I was invited to come when they were already having liquidity problems. And in both times, it came because they did not manage their working capital. Now, what is working capital? Working capital arises when you have three things. Number one is you extend credit to customers. So you have customers that don't pay you on time, which means that you book revenue, but you got no cash, right? It creates a cash need. Second is if you have a product and you have to get inventory before you sell, right? Again, you have to spend money before you get money.
Mm-hmm.
And the third is when you're paying vendors, you can similarly how you give credit to customers, you can get credit to them. So that's a positive effect on your cash. Now, if you don't manage this cycle, which is called the cash conversion cycle, correctly, sooner or later, you're going to be in a situation where you may be generating revenue and your income may be positive, but your cash is dwindling.
Mm-hmm.
Especially it happens as you're growing fast and if you don't account for the cash requirements of your business. So it may be, oh my God, I'm so happy I'm getting more customers. But because it requires company resources to support those customers, and then you don't get cash right away from those customers, you actually begin losing money. Just counterintuitive.
Right. Well, and I think too, a lot of times people are looking at that top line number and not what's left over after all of the expenses. And so they get so excited, like, yes, we're growing, our revenue is, so much better, but they don't realize like maybe their profit is actually decreasing. And the importance of really looking at everything that goes into your financial picture, right? And not just looking at that top line revenue.
Absolutely. And I would say another thing that happens is that it's very important for when there is a finance team, that team talks to all other teams and they don't operate in a silo. Because otherwise, even if you build the best forecast in the world, right, with all of the information, if you don't take the right inputs, the result will never be realized, right? So it's really understanding how all of the parts of the business interact together so that you have a knowledge of how any decision may reverberate throughout the company. And so when you have a top line, you have an understanding of how, what the departments that are affected, and as it grows, what's going to need to be scaled accordingly.
Right. Well, besides having issues with, potentially dwindling profits as they're growing, and not necessarily knowing what they're spending and having to educate other departments as well on everything that's going on. Like, what are some other common challenges that you have seen going through like these growth phases that we could explain to the listener so they could try to avoid them?
One other challenge that I often see is not tracking the data at the right level or not tracking the right data. So what do I mean by that? Of course, we all know the most common metrics that we should all track, such as gross profit, different profit margins, cash flow, revenue, costs, etc. However, there are other metrics. Some are common to all businesses, some are specific to an individual business that should also be tracked. Some of them may be calculated using did not track directly, and some of them will be tracked directly. This requires setting up your financial systems in a way which allow you to get that data either directly or to get components on the data where you can calculate those metrics. One specific mistake that I see is allocation of different costs, especially if you have several revenue streams and you need to understand how those costs get allocated amongst those revenue streams so you can understand the profitability of each revenue stream. I once had a client come in that had all of the possible mistakes you can make in financial reporting, where to the point where he thought that one revenue stream was profitable and another not. Because of the way the data was recorded, it was actually the opposite. And he made hiring decisions based on that data. And only because they were generating so much cash that they were able to cover up the mistakes. Not cover up, but finance the mistakes that were made in decision making. They didn't go out of business. They just got really lucky. And most companies would not be so lucky. Most companies, if you make bad decisions with bad data, you would go out of business very quickly, unfortunately. So you're going to be exacerbating the problem instead of addressing it. So not recording the data to the right revenue stream or at the right level will, again, distort profitability and muddy the picture about what's happening in the business.
Right. So, do you want to share maybe some best practices that the entrepreneur can be putting into place to make sure that they are tracking everything properly and looking at the right figures and having the right metrics in place so that they really have that full picture?
Sure. I mean, I would say that they need to hire a CFO and implement the full financial cycle. I think it's a mistake to try to do something yourself, which is not your profession. That's a mistake that we as entrepreneurs often fall into a trap of, because we think we have to bootstrap everything and we have to lean in. But then we know, for example, we cannot be lawyers, right? We know if
Hmm.
we're going to be our own lawyers, we're going to end up in court with bad problems. And by the
Hmm.
way, I can share my own experience. I definitely thought I can be my own lawyer. And then I had to go to my cousin, who is a partner at Latham & Watkins, and ask for help. And luckily, I had my cousin who I could ask for help, but otherwise, I would be in a very bad situation. So do not save money where it actually costs you more later.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
get financial advice. It doesn't need to be expensive. You can get somebody to just come in and do the initial plan for you and implement it, make sure it's implemented correctly in financial systems, and then get regular reviews so that you understand what's happening in your business. Um, I only if you have a financial background, you can try to do some of the work yourself initially, but eventually it's going to eat your time, because as a business owners, I suggest that you guys are focused on growing your business and thinking about partnerships and launching new products, as opposed to doing operations and other parts of the business that are not your direct responsibility. So,
Hmm.
in terms of best practices, I would say making sure that a financial model represents their interdependencies with all sides of the business is important. It's specifically aligned with the sales strategy, that the revenues don't just come out as a hard-coded number, but they represent the cycle of how they're going to be generated, is key to ensuring that the strategy can be tracked and those revenues can be realized, and then the business can react fast to market feedback. Selecting the right systems and making sure that um, you understand how the data comes in from the systems into the financial system, and so that it's properly recorded and converted is also important. I've had situations where the data did not come correctly from Shopify, for example, which was a
Hmm.
product company, and as a result, they had slightly incorrect results in financial systems forever. And it's only because the business wasn't large enough that the IRS didn't catch it. If the
Hmm.
business was large enough, it would be issues, right? Because those small mistakes would actually be not such small mistakes, and then somebody would eventually catch it. So I
Hmm.
would say integration, alignment, and then what's also extremely important is regular reporting, where you reconcile what happened with what you thought, and you take a moment to think about what happened and what it means for the future. It will just ensure that you're not in a situation where you suddenly run out of money, or
Hmm.
your profit goes down. There's no sudden if you're constantly keeping a pulse on what's happening in your company. In fact, the way I think about finance is I think of it as language with which your company communicates with you. So, it has
Hmm.
no other way to communicate. And if you speak the language and you clear the communication channels, through the systems, through the models, through reporting, you can really allow your company achieve its full potential.
Hmm. Right. Well, and you were mentioning too, if someone, is not really good in this area, to hire someone else, but there may be people who still really are good at this area, but they're running their company and they probably should still have someone assisting them because they could be focusing on growth and, applying their skills in that area instead of sitting behind the desk and just doing all of the, basic bookkeeping or CFO duties or things like that too.
Absolutely. It depends on the stage of the business and how much time it takes. For example, I do my own books because it doesn't take a lot of my time. But as I'm building Power Up, which is the program for female entrepreneurs, I know that I will outsource that function
Hmm.
eventually. So it depends. If you can do it and it doesn't take a lot of your time, then you may want to save that money initially. But if you have so much business where your time, whatever the time is, costs more than whatever it is you're spending on doing it, then obviously it makes more sense even financially to hire somebody else.
Right.
And then I didn't do my taxes. I realized a long time ago that I'm not an accountant. So, and it's definitely not a tax accountant. And this is where I draw the line as a finance expert.
Right. Well, that's where you're making wise business decisions too, when you're thinking of hiring professionals to handle this area of your business, because like I said, either one, you don't have time, or you don't have the interest, or you don't have the skill, but making sure you have that team of professionals to assist you so that you can have that successful company. It's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say it's not just in finance. For example, I don't like marketing. And when I was initially starting my business, I was doing everything like many of us before I learned that I need to delegate. And my marketing wasn't going so well because that wasn't my passion, and I really wasn't good at doing it. And so it's not just the finance. I would say whatever is, there is a proverb, or there is a saying that I heard: do what you do best and delegate the rest. And that's, I would think, is the that is should be the guiding force. Focus on where you bring the most value to your company, not to bring partners, or be ready to invest some money, because ultimately it's the investment in your business, and that is okay to invest in your business.
Exactly.
To take a little bit of risk.
Exactly. I agree. So I know you were interested in sharing, again, your offer that you have for our listeners. So I'd love for you to specify, again, what that is, how they can find out more information from you, and how can they connect with you as well.
Sure. So I'm happy to offer a 30-minute financial model review for anybody who would like it. The way to get it is to schedule a 30-minute consultation with me on the startupstation.com. And all female entrepreneurs, I also invite to check out our coaching program. We have a very affordable price of $180 for 3 months. It's $15 per session. There are 3 programs open for enrollment right now. We will be adding more with different times shortly. And so information about that is available if you go on the startupstation.com to the tab Power Up, and you click on that Power Up coaching program, and then register now. We'll give you a list of all programs available. Some of them start, one of them starts in April right now, and 2 of them start in May. And there will be more added very soon. So yeah, these are my 2 offers. If somebody wants to connect with me, LinkedIn we publish a lot of content on LinkedIn on a weekly basis for both female founders and for entrepreneurs in general on the subjects of finance, accounting, financial modeling, fundraising. So follow Victoria Yampolsky, the Startup Station, or Power Up to get that content. And finally, I actually want to say that Power Up, the Startup Station, has partnered with TechCrunch to offer 20 grants to female founders to attend the TechCrunch early stage event in April for free. So I will share an application that female founders can fill out to apply. And for everybody else, we have a code for 25% off for those who don't get it, or for male founders.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Victoria, for being a guest on my show and sharing your expertise in this area. I really appreciated your time, and I enjoyed our discussion.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Perfect. And to the listener, if you enjoyed today's topic, be sure to reach out also to Victoria. And you can also find a link in the show notes to our bonus question. So I hope you have a great day, and I hope you join us again next time. Thank you for tuning in today. Would you please share this episode with those you know and leave a review on your favorite platform? And if you find our show informative, would you consider being a financial sponsor to help me continue my mission to educate business owners? A link is located in the episode description, and no amount is too small. I'd really appreciate your support. If you are interested in connecting with our guest and receiving the offer they had to share, a link to our resource page is in the show notes. Finally, if you have any bookkeeping or payroll needs, reach out to us at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.